What the hell was that? They basically banned cards in every format except the format that everyone had their eyes on, Pioneer. Everyone, this is Nikachu Merfolk Master. And we did see bannings in a ton of formats. It was a ban party, but no bans in Pioneer. Pioneer is completely clear. R&D gave some pretty loose answer for this, and it's actually causing tons of backlash immediately post-banning, mostly from the community, not from the top players, just the majority, I think, of the Pioneer community. So let's just quickly get out some of the stupid announcements. Golos got banned in Brawl. I don't know if anyone cares. I most certainly don't. In Historic, Oko, Thief of Crowns, Veil of Summer, and Once Upon a Time got banned. To no surprise, in some cases they should just ban things prematurely because, why not? You ban things prematurely for Modern, and anyway, those cards were completely broken in Standard. We did see an unban. They took Field of the Dead off the suspend list for Historic, not for the format I was expecting, but there was an unban. Now we go to Modern. They banned Once Upon a Time. Once Upon a Time has now met the end. It's over for this card. It was pushing a lot of the decks over the top, and if you look over the last few weeks on Magic the Gathering Online, in the big open events, it's all green Eldrazi-tron and Amulet, and basically any other deck that can stick a Once Upon a Time in the deck. Basically, even Merfolk players in the last few weeks have been playing Once Upon a Time. That probably was the breaking point. Even now, when Merfolk's playing Once Upon a Time, you know that it deserves to be banned. So, Once Upon a Time, really, the fact that Eldrazi-tron went from we don't want to play this card at all, to the point where almost every single build is playing with Once Upon a Time just shows the power of this card, and I knew it would be very good in Tron builds. Now, it ended up being in Eldrazi-tron more than, regular Tron, and it most definitely had a better fit in Eldrazi-tron because you can find the Eldrazi, you can find your Reality Smasher, the Thought-Knot Seer, the Matter Reshapers. So there were more targets and better targets. It was a way better deck for Once Upon a Time. And now, I think the Amulet decks, while you can revert back to Ancient Stirrings, you have to completely change. I don't know if you have to completely change the deck, but certainly their builds recently were warped by Once Upon a Time. They were building their deck for Once Upon a Time. They made sure that they had, the deck was built with the Dryad of Elysian Grove and the right mana sources to find with Once Upon a Time. And now they're going to have to go back to Ancient Stirrings, which cannot find creatures. It's not going to, it's got to find colorless stuff. And it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. How are they going to change their builds? Definitely, it's still going to be a deck. Obviously, it's still going to be a deck. And in my opinion, it's going to be, it might be less consistent, but more explosive. I hate how Ancient Stirrings can find the Amulet. And then, even if they play Amulet by turn 4, they have incredibly busted turns. So the deck might become less consistent without Once Upon a Time, but it's going to be it's going to have more explosive turns because Ancient Stirrings can find the Amulet of Vigor. Now we move on to Legacy. Now Legacy had an expected banning, I think, for the Legacy community. Underworld Breach got banned. Now when I was talking with Goblin Lackey 1, who's the Goblin Master, and I'm asking him, what's the Legacy scene right now? What decks are there? And he basically says it's basically Breach. And every deck that has, if you play a deck, you have to have a plan for Breach. It's all about Breach. So the Breach decks completely turned Legacy on its head. If you have no plan for Underworld Breach, you're just basically dead in Legacy. So because the format warped around the card, they banned the card. Probably a good thing for Legacy. Good for them. Now we move on to the quintessential format that everyone was expecting changes. People could assume maybe there wasn't going to be any change in Modern, but people very strongly assume something had to change in Pioneer. Something. What card? It wasn't even a matter of what was going to get banned from Inverter. If something was going to get banned from Inverter, it was what is going to get banned from Inverter? Nothing. They did nothing at all. Wizard says Pioneer is exactly where they want it to be. They are happy with the state of Pioneer, stating that the inverter deck is only winning at like 49% of a win rate. Let me tell you, if you torture the data enough, it will confess. You know, when it comes, Wizards in this case, they're just making a decision and supporting it however they want. If they want diversity and the most common deck was winning at 49%, I think they would still ban the deck anyway to support diversity. In this case, they're just not banning anything too soon because Inverter apparently is only winning at 49%, which I think is actually baloney. I think the deck is doing a lot better than 49%. But because Dimir Inverter is such a skill-intensive deck, I can see you winning tons of games against just bums and ponies that are piloting it. When you get a good player piloting it, it is very difficult. I know, I just laugh at everyone that said that Splinter Twin was like either a good matchup or an easy matchup, or there was nothing wrong with Splinter Twin at the time. But fact of the matter is, when you've got a master, when you have a master behind such a powerful deck like that, a very skill-intensive deck where it has a very high ceiling, the deck is almost unstoppable. Patrick Dickman had like a over 70% win rate. He's still like one of the leaders for modern win rate players, even from between the Grand Prix and Pro Tour level in Modern for Splinter Twin. And I think Dimir Inverter has a lot of similarities to Splinter Twin in that regard. So if you take the aggregate data between the good players and the bad players, sure, maybe it looks bad. Maybe it doesn't look so good or so powerful. But I do believe that Dimir Inverter is over time going to get better and better in the hands of the masters that are going to master their craft with it. Now, that being said, that's only going to matter at a very high competitive level. At your local game store level, it may not matter because you can beat up on those players. You know, there's going to be a lot of decks that are capable of beating it. I'm playing Spirits because I think I have like almost unbeatable win rate against Inverter. I've barely lost against it. So you go play. If you hate Inverter, you pick up Bant Spirits. That's the way to do it. So. But there's still the problem of diversity. A lot of people have bought into the Inverter deck, and still it's pretty strong, has a lot of free wins attached to it. Like, what are you gonna do? Like if your local game store is full of Inverter decks, like they're not gonna sell out of their deck. And what if you don't have a good matchup against it? So what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to buy into a new Pioneer deck? But anyway, so Inverter's here to stay. I mean, not only is Inverter here to stay, they acknowledged the Heliod Walking Ballista combo, which is rising up in power thanks to the mono-white aggro, the mono-white devotion decks that have also rising up in Pioneer. So between like the Ballista Heliod combo, Dimir Inverter, the Lotus Breach combo, this is a combo format. This is sometimes there are aggro formats, sometimes there are mid-range formats, and sometimes there are combo formats. So combo, you gotta be prepared for combo. You have to be comfortable with combo because that's what this format looks like. But I would not despair. You know, if you're not happy with Pioneer, you know, there's always a new set coming out, you know, every 3 months, and hopefully you will get the tools that you need to combat what you see here in the Pioneer format. But like still, like the whole statement, it's like Wizards is completely tone deaf from the community. I think there are like pros that are fine with how Pioneer is, but the majority of the community is not. They're very unhappy with what the format looks like. Maybe they bought into decks a little too prematurely, but you know what? The grace period was over once it hit January. And people thought their decks were good. And then all of a sudden, Theros Beyond Death comes out, changes everything. Changes all that stuff. All those archetypes, you know, the Thing in the Ice decks and the mono green ramp decks, like where are they? They're all gone. They're all gone. now that they have to face very serious, harsh, interactive combo decks. Very powerful, like Lotus Breach combos off very, very quickly, and the inverter deck is really resilient. In the hands of a good player, like the decision making in that archetype is really intense. I mean, what cards you delve away for dig through time, what cards you get with dig through time, what cards you leave in the graveyard for your Jace Vryn's Prodigy. It all has a big impact in the long run of a match that, you know, your average inverter player may not be realizing. I mean, I guess on the plus side, there's a lot of room to outplay the poor inverter players, and that's just something we're gonna have to do. There may not be any clear glass cannon cards to fight inverter, but there's certainly a lot of strategies. I mean, we know that Lotus Breach can be defeated with sideboard cards. They did not prevail over them, and now it's just a matter of time to see either can we strategize to beat inverter, or can the new archetypes, the new mono white devotion deck that's seeing a lot of play, is that enough to push inverter in their place and maybe let other archetypes rise up again? But let me know what you think about these bannings and unbannings. There was not much to be too excited about if you're a Pioneer player. Sorry about that. This has been Nikachu, Merfolk Master, talking about today's B&R announcement.